Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't know. I'm just about to be sick after what I've just heard and delivered in this place, and talk about people's freedoms when there are many Australians in this country that feel they don't have the freedom to walk safely in this country because of ideologies of people who have no regard for the Australian people and want to wish harm on us, which has been the place that has happened. There are some of us in this place who take the safety of the Australian citizens seriously, and then there are those who clearly don't. Those of you who dread the thought of a toxic, violent and lethal ideology returning to Australia will join with me in supporting this temporary exclusion order bill today. A law that is also in the UK. May not be the same, but it was brought into the UK as well because they knew what was happening in their country. I don't think enough coverage or consideration goes into the work that it takes, nor the money it costs taxpayers to monitor between 400 to 500 Islamic extremists who have somehow been given the freedom and right to live in a peaceful nation like Australia. So it deeply concerns me to think that under the current legislation we are fuelling a spike in that number by allowing some of the 230 people who left Australia to fight for terrorist groups back into this country. 230 left. Are they all Australians? Were they born here? I don't know. Do they have dual citizenship? Again, I don't know. Did they migrate out here to make Australia their home and wishing to go over there to fight against the values and principles of Western societies and the destruction they're having in another country? But I know they're against the Western values, and I know that they are hateful towards our culture and our way of life. 100 of those have actually been killed. Glad to see the end of them. 80 want to come back to Australia, and hence the bill. And then if you allow that 80 back in, then it's their wives, their kids, who are allowed in here as well. What are their thoughts? What are their beliefs? Be the same as the husbands. And then we have more of a problem on our hands. It not only concerns me, but the federal and state police and the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation as well. We're talking about the types of scumbags like Khalid Sharif. I want members in the Senate to imagine a dysfunctional character like Khalid Sharif, who left Australia in 2013 to fight for ISIS back into Australia. He was the guy who held the severed and bloodied heads of Syrian soldiers and made his young sons do the same. Oh, Senator McKim may talk about 14-year-olds. These kids were younger than 14. If you understand Islamic terrorists, they actually get them young, they train them, they radicalise them. That's why they have them young. These are the types who want to come back to Australia. These are the people that the Greens and Labor have defended the rights of. All I can say is thank God we killed him and his horrible terrorist sons in 2017. If ISIS weren't broadly defeated in Syria and other parts of the Middle East, these people wouldn't be fleeing. They'd be expanding their terrorist network into other countries. I went to a function in Sydney just a couple of weeks ago, and the Chaldeans, I had no idea who they were. They come from Syria and Iran. They are basically a Christian group of people going back hundreds and hundreds of years. Ask them what's happened to their country. Ask them what's happened to the women and the children. Their homes are gone. Absolute destruction because of this ISIS. And they have been given an opportunity to live in Australia that they are so grateful for. But the pain is still there. Who's doing anything about it? Do we ask those people if they want these men back in Australia? These fighters of ISIS? I'm sure they would resoundingly say no, as I believe that millions of Australians don't want them back in this country. Instead, the surviving cowards of ISIS are happy to return to Australia and spread their hateful ideology here. I believe the majority of Australians don't have any sympathy for these terrorist fighters and want them kept out, and that's been quite evident in listening to Talkback Radio and as I travel around the country talking to other Australians. If I had my way, they'd never be allowed back into Australia at all, but apparently that's not constitutional, hence why the temporary ban is for 2 years, notwithstanding a further 2 years if necessary. Labor have never been tough on border security, and they were sent a very clear message at the recent federal election for their inability to take a strong stance on terrorism and illegal border arrivals. I trust senators of the Labor Party will heed the warning of Australian voters and support this bill in the Senate. As for the Greens, well, we've heard their reply from Senator McKim. Their policy on open borders and allowing non-vetted people with these barbaric, hardcore, fundamental Islamic ideologies cannot continue. To listen to Senator McKim, and he talks about their basic human rights. Well, I'm sorry, what about the Australians' basic human rights? What about the people in Syria and Iran and even Afghanistan? What about their basic human rights? You're not thinking about that. Everyone has, responsibilities for their own actions. They lost their basic human rights. And you talk about freedom. Their basic freedoms, that's what it's all about, basic freedoms and their freedom of movement in Australia. Because if they come back here, we're going to monitor them. How dare we do that? How dare we know where they're going, what they're doing? If they're planning a terrorist attack, if they want to murder an Australian, how dare we ask of that? Their basic freedoms. No, they lost their freedoms when they left this country to go and fight with no fear, but with an intention to kill those who oppose their ideology, to take over countries, to murder others, innocents. These people don't deserve to be here. Why should we bring them back? Why should we pay for their legal costs and then end up with them possibly in prison at the cost of the taxpayer? Their choices was, they made their choice in life. You made your bed and you lie in it, as far as I'm concerned. And how ridiculous to say that you're losing your freedoms. What about the people that have lost their lives in this country because of those that wanted to create and have taken their innocent people's lives because of their own views? Treated equally under the law. That was another comment. Treated equally under the law. They gave up those rights. They don't have those rights to be treated equally. You know, it's... I'm in this chamber now for 3 years and I hear the Greens go on about their comments and how they want to protect everyone's rights, but it's never, ever about the people here in this country protecting the people in Australians' rights. It's always about everyone else around the world and the privacy and protecting their rights. You know, your responsibility is here for this country to protect the rights of the people here, and their right that we have in making this decision is that we ensure the safety of the people here in Australia first and foremost. Yeah. And if the people don't, and we're sending a clear message, if you have to go through this, the TEO, to get back into this country, then so be it. Then you might think twice about leaving our shores to go and fight in another country where you have no regard for life over there. So it's about time that we toughened up and got tough on this, because that's what the Australian people want of us. And heaven help us if the Greens ever get control of this government in this country, because it would be bedlam. As I said, it is a real concern of where we are headed as a nation if we do not allow this bill to pass. most of these people who want to come back here as well is they want to return, and I'd say most of these people will be unemployable. And not only will cost the Australians enormous amounts of money in surveillance, but will have a tendency to remain on long-term welfare, plus their families, if they want to apply and bring in their families. Lastly, I'd like to put on the record how grateful myself and One Nation voters are for the tireless work of our Australian Defence Force and coalition partners who have decimated groups like ISIS. The Australian Federal and State Police, along with Asia officers, also deserve an enormous amount of praise for their help in maintaining the safety of all Australians against the terror threat in this nation. To all our serving personnel, both here and abroad, all I can say is thank you. And I can speak on that because I went to Afghanistan last year and I was in the war zone. And I saw the benefits of us being over there has helped the country to get back on their own feet and start learning how to defend themselves, to give the people back their right to actually vote, which they were frightened to ever do beforehand. So our presence over there is helping the people. But to spend time with the soldiers over there and try to understand them, it was a wonderful experience for me. So unlike a lot of people here in this place who speak on an issue but yet have never travelled over there to take first-hand experience to do with it, you clearly sometimes don't even know what you're talking about. I don't want to see this terrorism in our own country, and the only way we're going to stop that is to take a strong stance against these people coming back here who will clearly have this hatred in their hearts for us and our culture and our way of life, and will do us harm whenever they possibly can. So I say to the Greens, I wish you would do the job that you should be doing here and standing up and representing the people of Australia first and foremost in their safety. Because isn't safety, their safety, the #1 issue that we must be looking at here first and foremost? And as I say, these freedom fighters made their choice to go over and fight another country. What about the lives that are being destroyed there? They have no regard for that. Do you think they have any regard for the lives here in this country? And a clear message must be sent to everyone else in this country. If they ever think about wanting to leave our shores to go and fight somewhere else, there will be repercussions, and you will face those repercussions. And if it means that you will never be able to return back home to Australia, then so be it. If it means that you will never come back here to see your family, then so be it. You made your choice in life, you made your bed, you lie in it. So I hope that this bill gets through tonight with some common sense from the senators in this place. It is so important to our security. And I will say to the government, to Peter Dutton, I am grateful that they have introduced this bill, because this is what the Australian people want.